Hello, this is Dr. Llewellyn Eisen, and we're going to talk today about women's health and well-being. And the focus of our conversation for this lesson is going to be Hildegard of Bingen, a 12th century monastic figure who was very popular and remains very popular and lived from 1098 to 1179, born in the 11th century, died in the 12th. And she lived a cloistered life, a sequestered life, in an age of accelerating change. This is the general timeline of some of the significant events in her life. Born in 1098, she was dedicated by her family to a monastery at Diesen-Dodenburg at the age of 8. And then by the time she was a young adult, she had been made an abbess in the year 1123. In the year 1167, she did the absolute unthinkable, and she established her own monastery. And I call this unthinkable because as a Benedictine nun, she was under the control of the monastery to which she was attached. And so the fact that she lifted a group of nuns and took them away from a monastery to establish their own monastery was pretty darn significant. She died in 1179. She lived a good long life, good long healthy life. But her legacy lives on in very significant ways. This is an image of the ruins, the remains of Diesen-Dodenburg, the monastery to which she was pledged as a young girl. The monastery that she later built in Bingen is still thriving and alive and well to this day, and a pilgrimage site for people all over the world. So the context of Hildegard, as I mentioned, is that she is a Benedictine nun. And remember, having read in the portion of the Rule of Benedict, care of the sick must rank above and before all else. And so for a cloistered nun in a convent, naturally, as we know, every monastery has its own hospital, and so Hildegard was one of the physicians in charge of the health care of the individuals at the convent. And she was alive during what we consider the final phase of monastic medical education during the advent of the university system. As mentioned, at this point in Europe, as I said, the intellectual life is beginning to be stabilized. And remember, prior to the rise of the university system, education is taking place within the monastery. And so Hildegard is alive and well and learning during this final phase of the monastic medical education system. And we see a shift during her lifetime where the texts are moving from simply the compilation or observation of certain kinds of diseases or treatments and whatnot to interpretation. So we find in these texts that the authors are seeking to discern and analyze and evaluate some deeper truths about the human body and health. And in the process of this interpretation, what's really fascinating is that they draw from a variety of disciplines. And this is true with Hildegard as well. They will draw from the disciplines of theology, of magic, and astrology, to name just a few. And so I actually encourage you to look for those in the short reading that I have for you from Hildegard. How does she combine a variety of disciplines in her explanation for how the body works and how to treat the body? So, other elements of Hildegard's context include the actual type of medicine that she practiced. One of the foundational documents for Hildegard's medical profession was Dioscorides de Materia Medica, or On Medical Materials. This is a 5-volume collection of medical texts that address all of the different types of healing elements known to Dioscorides. And in fact, it has been influential from the 1st century up to the 19th century. And there are even places in our present day, specifically on Mount Athos, where there are religious communities that still use Dioscorides as their foundational text for healing. As you can see from the contents here of the 5 volumes, each volume is dedicated to elements of healing properties found in nature. So aromatics, animals and herbs, roots, seeds and herbs, and vines, wines, and minerals. And as I said, this is foundational for Hildegard, who is going to rely on much of what is in this text for her medical knowledge. To give you an example of the type of healing agents that are found in this text, this is a page devoted to the plant mandrake, and you can see probably a familiar plant to many of you, that here is an element that has the description of the plant, elements about the effect of the plant as a medicine, guidance for the medicine, and of course a caution. And so sometimes it looks like this. For example, trial and error. A little of it is a pain easer, a sleep causer, and a digester, helping coughs and abdominal cavity afflictions. Taken as a drink, too often it hurts and it kills. And I think it's probably my slightly wicked sense of humor that does find it to be a little humorous that for most of the entries in this 5-volume series, you will find something along those lines of too often it hurts and it kills. And so you see how a lot of these methods of healing sometimes did not result in healing. Sometimes they brought about death, which is, I suppose, its own form of healing. And some of you with awareness of contemporary culture probably recognize the mandrake as the plant that Harry Potter experiments with. And here we have Draco Malfoy holding a mandrake. According to legend, the individual had to block their ears because when the mandrake was pulled, it would scream so loud it could actually kill you. And you can see from the root, of course, you have something of a human shape in the plant. Draco. So this is obviously an influential text for Hildegard, who will write her own version of it known as the Physica. And the Physica consists of chapters that include plants and elements, trees, stones, fish, birds, animals, reptiles, and metals. And in each of these chapters, she goes through and she defines all that she knows about the different elements or animals that she's exploring. For example, the whale has fiery heat and watery air in it. Notice here these 2 elements of fire and, well, actually 3, fire, water, and air. The whale has a certain relationship to the nature of fish as well as to the nature of beasts, such as the lion and bear. Now, she's incorrect in thinking that the whale is related to a lion or bear, but she is correct in that a whale is a mammal, as is a lion and bear. She suggests that if you make shoes from whale skin and put them on, you will have healthy feet and legs. Now, I don't know if that's accurate. I've never worn shoes made out of whale skin, but I suppose it's more healthier than wearing the plastic sandals that I have on right now. Other texts devoted to healing and healthcare that Hildegard writes, she has 3 major texts devoted to medicine, and the second is the Book of Divine Works. And in the Book of Divine Works, both the text and the images are prompted by her loss of consciousness and subsequent mystical insight, which for Hildegard is prefigured by blinding pain. There are a lot of historians, and actually medical historians, who will write that Hildegard was a victim of migraines or of epilepsy, is another common argument that will be made. And that this is an example, or this is the reason why she experienced these visions. But again, as a historian, we don't need to worry about whether or not her vision is an experience of the divine, or whether her vision is the effect of a migraine. These aren't things we need to care about. All we need to care about is what are the result of her thinking that this is, or what is the result of her thinking that this is a divine encounter. So it's much easier. All we need to do is just trust that she's experienced something and that she has insight because of that. In her Book of Divine Works, her theology shapes her understanding of the cosmos, the body, and the activity of the body. Hildegard's argument in the Book of Divine Works is that the human is a miniature version of the cosmic order, which you can see here in this illustration, or illumination, which she also created. And here she is down here in this illumination. So here you have the human at the center of the cosmic order. So for Hildegard, thinking about God, very pragmatically, she concludes, doesn't help anyone understand anything about God. But she claims thinking about the body might help, or might lead to some understanding of God, because the human body is a miniature version of the cosmic order. And the third text that Hildegard contributes that addresses medicine or natural history is her book Causes and Cures, which we are going to be reading a section from. In the Causes and Cures, Hildegard returns to the doctrine of four elements that we've already encountered through the Hippocratic corpus, and the argument that the body, the healthy body, has four humors that are in balance. And these four humors are connected with the seasons, and they are connected with the elements of life, of fire, earth, water, and air. And Hildegard accepts this as standard and true. And so her book provides treatments for balancing these humors and balancing these elements, and so provides insight on medieval pharmacology and herbal healing. And again, as I mentioned earlier, much of what she has to say about healing combines elements beyond theology to include magic and philosophy and astronomy. And so the treatments take all of these different disciplines in mind. As well, in Causes and Cures, she discusses some of the differences between the male and the female bodies. She discusses human sexuality, embryology. She discusses sleep and dreams, signs predicting death or survival. And then also, of course, astrological influences included in the text that I've assigned for you. So why does Hildegard matter? If it's not obvious already, she matters for a lot of reasons. She matters because she's the first identified female author in natural sciences, in medicine, and in human sexuality. She is not the first female doctor. She's not the first female physician. She's not the first female author. But she is certainly the first female author in natural sciences, medicine, and human sexuality. She also matters because of her articulation of sexual complementarities, of sexual pleasure, and autonomy. Hildegard matters because for her, education is about more than simply the preservation of what has come before. For Hildegard, education is also about innovation. And so in answer to the question, what does monastic medicine or what does monastic medical reflection look like? Hildegard would say it is visionary, it is innovative, it is exciting, and it is maybe even a little bit scandalous. So, if you have any questions at this point, you know what to do. Just send me an email at isonbl@plu.edu. Thank you.